Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the sports betting show hosted by a real statistic professor. This is NFL Week 1 of the 2024 season. Jake, how's it feel to be back trying to follow up maybe the most incredible NFL betting season in history?
The fact that we were up 40-something units is just ridiculous on our first go at it. I hate when we set the bar so high on that first round because it makes it really tough to do it. But you know, I think we got it. I think we got it in the bag. We can do it.
You are a person of optimism for sure. I don't think that's sustainable. But it's funny, if you were with us last year, and viewer, I hope you were, because as you can see on screen, we started off. We were about this percentage at the halfway point. It was fewer units because there's fewer games, but we were like 100 bets in and had like a 20% ROI. We were like, there's no way this continues. Like, we're just trying to make a little bit each week. We were being like modest about it, everything, and like it kept going. And so I don't know. It's what we've been saying. I don't know if this is repeatable, people. So I don't want to get people's expectations too high. But last year it was incredible. And I put here, this is week 1 of college football. And I put this here in last year's college football numbers just to reiterate that we have a really good player-based model. And it already worked in week 1 of college football. It worked last year in college football, worked last year in the NFL. And so there's just a lot of green, a lot of positive ROIs. 5 and 8%, is the on the low end there, a lot of double-digit ROIs. And, that's, I think, pretty good. If we finish this NFL season with an 11% ROI, that would be fantastic. If we get up to the 20s like we did, that'd be fantastic too. So, you never know. And every week, unfortunately, won't be profitable. We didn't win every single week last year, but we won way more than we didn't, and that's really what matters. So again, hopefully we've convinced you at this point. Hopefully, you've been with us at this point and making all the money in the NFL. But if not, still a lot of good times ahead, and you can get all the picks: college football, NFL, MLB, college basketball, everything with the Duck Club Honor Roll. There's also a football only package, and again, I share this in the college football show. If you're with us on that QR code or link in the show description will take you there. But we've got a free trial on weekly, monthly packages, and we've got discounts on the 3-month, 6-month, 1-year packages. We're sharing that on Twitter. And if you want the football only package, you can get your first year for only $99.99. That gets you NFL and college. There's a lot of specials happening right now to take advantage of as football season is starting. We think it's going to be a great year. It already started great in college football. Jake, what else should I mention here? I feel like there's probably something.
Like that football package alone is worth it. Gets you NFL, which we absolutely killed last year, but like the college football's already doing about as good, if not better, than last year. So everything's improving. You are constantly improving the model, and that means we get better and better information, making more and more money. So now's the time to jump on, and that means it's going to be good for basketball too. So I would do the whole thing, so that way you get basketball, baseball, and football.
And I mean, you're right. And I don't know if I say that enough, but I am constantly tweaking the models. And that doesn't mean necessarily every tweak works out, but I'm not a person who wants to be stagnant and rest on our laurels. I'm always looking for ways to make things better. We were talking about this, I think off show. I think I haven't said it yet with a couple of people, but money's made in the margins. And that's really the bottom line, is that, we're not out here hitting, $1,000 off $5 bet parlays, right? And if you can do that, like, great, that's fun. But, that's not really the way to make money sports betting. It can be fun and you might hit a big one. But if you're trying to really make money sports betting, the way that we do things around here is the way to do it. And it is a slow and steady rise. And that means that money is made in the margins. It means that the little bit here and the little bit there all adds up. And so I'm constantly tweaking to get that. And, it's consistently a 1 step back, 2 steps forward with all the changes that I make. And I'm continuing to do that. And so, that's the benefit of me being a former statistics professor, is now I get to do this and tweak these things with all of my spare time. So a lot of reasons to check out the club. And again, those specials can get you some savings here as football season is starting. Some quick reminders: it is a player-based model. Ratings reflect the current roster. For the NFL, there's that's fairly straightforward here at week 1, other than a situation or two. But that'll get hairy, of course, as the season goes along with injuries, as they will unfortunately pile up. The average grade's 100 higher, implies more points, so defenses want to be low, offenses want to be high. We are projecting an average game. We do not know what will happen in one game. Weird things happen. We work off of probabilities and expectations, which tells us that anything is a good bet. at the right price or number doesn't mean we'll see it, but by identifying that, we can consistently win more when we win than we lose. When we lose, we will win a lot, we will lose a lot of picks, but we can consistently win more money on the winners than we lose on the losers. And that's what we do over here. The model will give it A, B, or C grade. We will add the plus. I think today we have all A grades and 1 B grade of the 8 picks that we have here. There's 16 games, of course, in week 1, and we're going to cover half of them. And we're going to give you a pick on half of them. So without further ado, we'll start here with the Thursday night game, Baltimore, Kansas City. According to Silent, Baltimore's the best team in football going forward. Kansas City, number 5. Obviously, that Kansas City defense was very much improved last year and really fueled their success. We were on so many unders for Kansas City. I'm not sure their defense will be quite that good this year. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. It's a heck of a lot better starting position than it was last year. I will say that. That's going to be a little bit of the issue for the Chiefs this year. The other issue, of course, is I think kind of the same thing we see with, say, the Astros, who's my team in baseball. When you're constantly playing those extra games, it's hard to come back year after year. And the Astros look good now if you're a baseball fan, but they look terrible the first month of the season. And I'm not saying the Chiefs will necessarily start off that way. It's just every time that they win another Super Bowl and every time that they're playing all those extra games, like you saw it last year in the regular season, they weren't that good and they turned it on at the end when it really mattered, and they were fantastic. But early on, they kind of struggled. I don't know if we're in for that again, but I know that is a thing to keep in mind. So it's just something, again, to keep in the back of your mind, Baltimore being a great team. Jake, we've got this as pretty much a coin toss game. Baltimore winning 51% of the time. We're going to take Baltimore at plus 127. I think I've seen some plus 130s as an A grade pick here. I don't know who wins this. This should be a pick 'em. I think there's value on the Ravens because I think everyone's thinking back to the playoffs last year, the playoffs in any year, basically. Pick a year at this point. The Ravens struggling in the playoffs, the Chiefs excelling in the playoffs. And that's the last thing that we saw, of course. I'm just not sure regular season is going to be the same thing. I'm not sure the Ravens win. I just think they got a 50-50 shot in plus odds. And folks, we talked about it before. We talked about it on the College Football Show here this week with Cousin Jared. This has been our bread and butter, really. Just, taking these plus odds in these coin toss games and being like, hey, we don't know if we're going to win them all. We're going to know which ones we're going to win. We're going to half of them. We're going to make money. We got another plus odds here later in the show coming up very quickly. And hey, we just won one of the two. We made money. And that's all we're looking to do. If we accidentally win both, hey, it's even better. Jake, what's your take on this game?
Like, I think all the extra games add up to Kansas City. We saw it last year. They came out, struggled against Detroit before Detroit really got going. I think they dropped that game. And I know Kelsey didn't play that game, but, I mean, he's got that pre-scripted breakup, if you believe what's going on with Taylor Swift right now, which is... I
hadn't heard that one. I'm not a big enough Swiftie, I guess.
Apparently, it was leaked today that there was a contract breakup for September 28th, so he's got this last couple weeks of dating Taylor. So,
I have no words.
No, I mean, just goofing around. But I think Baltimore really improved by getting Derrick Henry, giving Lamar Jackson an actual run game actually helps him a lot because the receivers aren't the greatest. Mark Andrews is back, that helps him out quite a bit. Lamar's a great.
And as he likely was so fantastic, getting them both in the same field at the same time should be a lot of fun to watch too.
Yeah, it gives him just that many more weapons and an actual consistent guy that can get 4 to 5 a carry rather than the ghost of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards trying to go it. It was just neither one of those guys could get it going. So I think Baltimore is very undervalued here, and everybody's still in love with the Chiefs because, I mean, Mahomes, Kelsey, and all them is great, but they really still don't have a number one receiver to depend on yet. I think they've got the makings of a couple, but they're not there yet. So I think we can take advantage of this plus money on the Baltimore here.
Yeah, I was looking at a few things here based off what you said. Running back ratings, number one. Christian McCaffrey, according to Sideline, is the best running back in football. If I'm seeing this right, Derrick Henry is tied for number 2 behind him with Tony Pollard, actually. There's a bunch of guys right behind him, so I'm not necessarily here to say that that's going to be the top 3, best running backs in football or anything, just to say he's way up there. And there's a bunch of, top tier running backs, but I know there's some people who might think, Derrick Henry's, over the hill, a little bit older or whatever. Sideline still believes in him and still thinks he's going to be in that top tier. And there will obviously be some shuffling again in those ratings, although Christian McCaffrey will almost assuredly be towards the top. But getting Derrick Henry matters a lot. And I noticed that, and I'd kind of forgotten about that move. for the Ravens. And then I saw, again, in our notes here, if you're with us on Dub Club, you've seen this, but I have a ton of extra notes that come out to all of our subscribers. You get all this like insight into what the model thinks about position and offense and defense stuff. It had their running back group as number 5 in football. And I was like, whoa, and it was like, oh yeah, Derrick Henry, like they have a real running back now. And I think that's gonna matter. Like I said, I'm really excited to see the 2 tight ends and how good both of those guys have been here on the field, together at the same time. And so I think both teams, complete team, really good. And I'm like you, I think this Chiefs team's really good as well. It's not taking anything away from them. We got them number 5 overall. When you get to the playoffs, I haven't built this into the model, but you do have to wonder if like the Chiefs should have like an added playoff bonus. But we're not to the playoffs yet. And I'm just thinking so much last year. There were so many games in the regular season where they just really struggled to get it going. They relied on their defense. The offense couldn't get it going. Whatever it may be. It's like you said, just all those games just add up at some point, year after year after year. And so it's not to say that the Ravens will win it, just to say that I take plus odds on either team, and we're getting plus odds on the Ravens. These sort of games mean a lot to the Ravens because they haven't been able to get there with this group of players, I think. Whereas the Chiefs, this game doesn't mean as much to them potentially as it is to the Ravens. So that's just kind of our 2 cents on it. We love the plus odds, plus 127.8, great pick. Of course, folks, they'll always shop around. Having multiple books in your account can help you out. Spread around your money between 3 or 4 places. Find the best odds at each place. Every nickel, every dime you can save helps you out. If you don't have an account there yet, BetUS, 125% bonus on your first ever 3 deposits, each up to $2,000 piece.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Move on to Friday night. Why is there a Friday night game? Why is this game in Brazil? Like, I have a lot of questions.
Decisions were made.
Decisions were made. Yeah, here we are. Might as well enjoy it. And for the good people of Brazil, I'm sure, if they have tickets, it's fun, or you're a fan from one of these teams, you get to travel down there and enjoy a fun place. I mean, sure, I guess. It's weird. Maybe it'll be a thing. I don't know what, but anyway, it should be a great contest. Green Bay, Philadelphia. We've got these teams pretty lockstep with each other. Green Bay number 10, Philadelphia number 12. Jordan Love just took massive steps last year. I remember watching week 1 and being like, I'm not sure about this guy, but it seemed like it wasn't that long after that he started looking really, really good. So I've got him as the number 7 quarterback in football. Jalen Hurts number 4, obviously still a very good quarterback. We were talking about this on Discord. There's a bunch of quarterbacks in that 4 to 10 range that are all pretty good, that'll jockey around, and who knows who will come on top. But Jordan Love, really good quarterback. Hurts a really good quarterback. Both these teams have good offenses. Both these teams have questionable defenses, to say the least. Both of them have struggled at times last year. That was partially the Eagles' downfall. I remember the Giants putting up points upon points upon points against them with like their 9th quarterback or whatever it was, no offensive line. And so, that was just kind of the flashbacks I got when I was like, man, this defense rates, we were high on them at the defense at the start of the year last year, and it just kind of fell apart. And that's the thing. If the Eagles defense can come together, and that's obviously their hope, that they got some reinforcements coming. If they can figure it out, that's how they're going to compete for the division, make a playoff run, et cetera. The model's skeptical now. If they play well, it will adjust. But at least for now, we aren't too sold on that Eagles defense. It makes us about a 50-50 game. So the same thing, folks. We're going to take the Packers plus 129 A-grade play. And it's kind of the same story as the first one. That was a road game. This is a neutral site game. But just kind of saying, I don't know what's going to happen in this game. So give me some plus odds. It's been our bread and butter. We're going to try it on Thursday. We're going to try it on Friday, and we're going to see if we can start off at least 1-1 with some money. And like I said, maybe we'll accidentally win too. Jake, what's your take on this Packers-Eagles game in Brazil?
Like I think this Green Bay team is very, very underrated. I think Love really showed up at the end of last year. They were playing really well. I mean, they won, I think, 2 playoff games with one of the youngest teams in football, and I think they improved at running back by getting Josh Jacobs. I think that was a major grab. They re-signed their top corner. I forget his name. But either way, like that really helps, especially against the Philadelphia offense. They can be as dangerous as this. I think there's so many new pieces on Philadelphia with Barkley and Dotson and all of that, and Goddard coming back, and like the new pieces on defense. I'm not sure they've got it all put together in a game that's really a coin toss in Brazil. Who knows how that field
who
is.
knows?
Versus, the travel alone is weird. I don't know. In a game like this where there's just so many question marks and so much toss up, give me the plus odds every time. I'm going to go with it.
AJ Dillon and Josh Jacobs, I think, make a pretty formidable pair at running back for Green Bay.
I think Dillon's hurt though.
Is Dillon hurt? Okay. I was
Yeah.
thinking maybe just long-term prognosis for this, that like
Yep.
you've got two guys that I'm like, I'm not sure about either one of them. They're both kind of have some question marks. Jacobs took a huge step back last year, of course, but it's like it could be over for him. He could find it. Like you could have like lightning in a bottle with that sort of signing, right? And so it's always good when you just add these depth pieces. It's similar to, and I know baseball the best, I guess, of every sport. But I think about with baseball, the whole point of draft picks and trading for prospects, it's not that every prospect's going to hit. You just get a bunch of them and you're like, some of these guys are going to work out, right? So it's like the more signings you can make, especially at a position like running back where you're like, this guy might work out, like the more you can just add guys like that. And that's what to Josh Jacobs, to me, it's like, hey, if he works out, oh my goodness, like you have got yourself a monster there. And if he doesn't, like you've got some other guys who are decent enough that could hang in there. And so there's some real upside potential. I think they're at the running back slot for them. But you talk about the Packers in the playoffs, and I completely forgot about that too. My memory is terrible. I talked about this with cousin Jared on the college football show. I can't remember anything. That's why I have these models and these things and these notes. But I remember now thinking back, watching it, being so surprised that how well they played. Even going on the road, it wasn't a big deal for them, and that team looked impressive. And at the end of the season last year, you would look at it and you would have said that the Packers were the better team than the Eagles. Like the Eagles were really struggling that last several weeks of the season, and the Packers are playing really well. And so it's so interesting to me, this line, as if we're like throwing that out completely. And I'm thinking that we should only use that because there's a few moving pieces on the roster and everything, but it's like, these are mostly the same teams. Like there's not that big of a change. I don't think I didn't see anything that really is like this and this and this are jumping out and changing. It's like, it's close enough that you look at that. It's like, man, I'm just surprised this isn't closer to a pick'em, that we're getting this good at plus odds. I'm like you with the Brazil thing. Who knows how that's going to affect anything? And so it just goes back to, again, plus odds. We want crazy variance. We want weird things to happen in these plus odds games. And so again, another plus odds dog here for us Friday night, which will take us to Sunday afternoon, Jacksonville and Miami, the Battle of Florida. Jacksonville, according to Sideline, in the mid-teens. Miami, a very good team, according to Sideline, number 4. A great offense. The model thinks the defense is going to be improved. The defense had fallen last year down into more middle of the pack, bottom of the pack. They did give up a few extra points because their pace was a little bit more frenetic. This year, the model thinks their pace is going to slow down a little bit more. That's going to help out the defense. I'm not exactly sure how much that's going to play into it. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because I have these slides. I've built these slides, a model before we were doing college football. The pace difference here is so much smaller than in college football. In college football, the pace difference between an 88 and a 118 is like light years apart. It's worlds apart. In this, it's like 2% of how many more plays. It's like an extra 2 plays. Like it's nothing basically. So we do have the pace information there. At the beginning of the season, it mostly kind of just defaults to we don't really know a lot. We're using some information from last year, but we know things change. And again, it's not that pivotal in the NFL. So don't worry about that as much. The bottom line is that we think this Jacksonville team, I think this Jacksonville team, the model is actually a little bit higher on them than they were last year. Last year, we were down on Jacksonville the whole year. We consistently were talking about the fact that Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback, but he is getting almost no help anywhere else other than Etienne, who was good. The line wasn't very good. The receivers, they didn't have the depth there. This year, maybe we're a little bit more optimistic on them. Still think they're a mediocre team. Still think this Dolphins team is really good. We're going to lay the 3.5. The model thinks it should be 7.5. Home team here, better quarterback, better offense. Sideline says Miami has a better defense. Even if those defenses are pretty similar, we'd still have this more like Miami by 6. Not going to be stressed about the hook laying 3.5. Jake, what do you like about this one?
Look, I'm not a big Jacksonville fan. I don't know that. I think we've seen the best of Trevor Lawrence in college. I don't know that it's getting that much better. He's not been really given the greatest situations either, so that sucks. But he just doesn't look the part as much in the NFL. Etienne is very good. I'm not convinced of the defense. I'm not convinced of their receivers. Miami, on the other hand, has absolutely proved that in warm weather at home, they can absolutely run you into the ground. They've got speed everywhere between Hill and A-Chain and Mozart, and Waddle, and whoever else they want to throw out there that's probably an Olympic sprinter. That's really good. And that defense, like that defense fell off last year with injuries, especially to the pass rush. Those guys are coming back. I think the defense is going to be better. I think at the beginning of the year, Miami is probably like the number one team in football. And then as the weather turns a little colder, they slow down. Everything slows down a little bit. People catch up. But right now, I think Miami is a great team to just almost blind back.
Yeah, it's a great point about the weather and how it gets so sweltering hot down there and how they can really take that use it to their advantage. The defense, again, the model's optimistic on them. The injuries, maybe that's part of the reason why it's a little bit high on them. What I'll say here, especially at the beginning of the year, is that we're not saying that sideline is nailing anything perfectly. What we're saying is that, we're mostly in the ballpark usually on these things. Things aren't too crazy. And if they are, they'll adjust quickly. We're not going to be right on everything. Last year we had some pretty hot takes in week 1, and we were, dead wrong on 2 of them, and we nailed 4 of them or something like that, or the model did. I say, and that's the sort of thing that kind of happens. Is we're not going to get everything right. So if you were disagree with one of these things, it may be wrong. It's just that on average, we tend to get more right than wrong, and that's why I have a winning model here. The model is fairly impressed with the Dolphins, of course, as a team, and thinks their defense can make not be as bad as last year. You make a good point too. The last time we saw the Dolphins, they did not look good on offense. That was in like 5-degree weather or -2-degree weather or whatever it was in Kansas City that day.
It was not a fair game.
It was not, and it's not going to be. It wasn't whatever 90 degrees it's going to be, and 100% humidity. That'll be in South Florida here on Sunday during the day. Of course, the Dolphins have the number 1 rated running back group in football, and you're like, yeah, that's natural. If the model didn't say that, I would have questioned it, because with those 2 guys at the top, that's just an insane combination for them. The model thinks that the Jaguars' run blocking hasn't got any better, but does at least think their pass blocking has gotten a little bit better. Maybe that can help keep Lawrence upright. He's towards the back end of the good quarterbacks, but still a positive for them. Kind of the same way as most of their team is very just kind of decent. Nothing really jumps out. And, I think that was good enough to win the AFC South a couple of years ago. And the last year with the way the Texans played, it wasn't good enough to win it then. Right. And so I think that's the same thing. We're in for the similar situation where it's a flawed team. There's nothing really that shines necessarily. And a team like that at this point of the season going into Miami seems like a tough thing. Dolphins could win by 3. We're going to lay the 3.5. We think it gets a little bit more carried away. And I'm like you, early on in the season, Miami at home, it's going to have to be some really high numbers before I would tell you not to play it. This is definitely not one of those. Really 3.5 with the Dolphins. 8 great picks Sunday at noon. Also Sunday at noon, or 1 p.m. Eastern, I should say. We're at New England and Cincinnati. This is our most controversial pick, potentially, of the day, our most controversial model take. And so, you don't have to put it in the comments. I'm well aware. I'm looking at the ratings for New England, overall number 15, and I'm like, that seems a bit high. I think everyone's really down on. I think everyone thinks they're going to be a bottom 5 team. I don't know. Here's what I will say is that everyone said the same about the Texans last year too. And last year I had the Texans about this time, like kind of number 15. I was like, I think they might be decent if they could stay healthy. And they turned out they could, and they exceeded my expectations, but everybody was talking about how they were going to be so terrible. I think Jacoby Brissett is an upgraded quarterback from what they had before. I'm not saying he's going to, light the world on fire, but he's at least an above average quarterback, which is crazy to say, barely above average, but above average quarterback or better than an average backup, right? And that's kind of what they've been starting. So he's at least adding something. That defense looked really good last year. It wasn't just who they played. It wasn't just the amount of points they allowed. The play-by-play data kind of backed that up, that it was a real thing. The defense is good. They got a new coach. You never know how that's going to play out, right? Sometimes that really works. It worked for the Texans, right? Sometimes it doesn't work. So there's a lot of question marks here. Is the model probably too high on New England? Sure, probably. I don't think that's crazy to say. To me, what's crazy, this line's 8.5. I think beyond a touchdown's a bit much. We have a lot of questions about Cincinnati, specifically their defense. Now, are the Patriots the team to score off of them? I mean, LOL, probably not. But, as good as Joe Burrow is at this point, I'm just not sure this is the same Cincinnati team from a couple of years ago. I'm not sure it's the same offense. I'm not sure it's the same defense. I think the Cincinnati team, to me, this is a little bit, yes, the model's too high on New England, sure. But this is also interesting to me, the model has Cincinnati at number 18. It's not very high on them, and that could be wrong too. If so, the model will adjust. But at least coming into this, the model's saying Cincinnati might not be as good as we think. New England might not be as bad as we think. And that doesn't necessarily mean New England's going to make the playoffs and Cincinnati won't. What it means is 8.5 points is a lot for a team with a good defense who wants to muck this up and make this a low-scoring game. I can easily see Cincinnati winning this game 13-6, right, or something ugly like that. We're going to take the points. It's a lot of points. Jake, did I talk you into New England a little bit at least?
I mean, it's a lot of points. I can lean that way. I think the biggest point is Jamar Chase is still a question mark. He said he's not going to play if he doesn't have a deal. Does he hold to that? Well, I don't know. Who knows? Because when the time comes, that everybody has different motivations. But also, the Bengals offense has to be taking a step back, right? You go from Joe Mixon to Zach Moss. Mixon didn't have the greatest of years last year, but Moss could barely win a starting job anywhere. He kind of got defaulted into it in Indianapolis. He did well, but that was a flash in the pan, I think. The third receiver, Boyd, is gone. I'm not sure who Cincinnati's third receiver is off the top of my head at the moment, but I don't think he's as good as Tyler Boyd.
Whoever it is, it's a list of guys that I'm not even sure I've heard of, to be honest.
And the defense has always been questionable. The line is iffy. Jerod Mayo, I think, he was at least proven as a good to great defensive coach. Right. As a head coach, we'll see, but right. I mean, he's at least not throwing Drake May to the Wolves yet, because Brissett is almost like the new generation Ryan Fitzpatrick. Just go and play a year or two here, year or two there, year or two, like, just be the starter for while they get to the rebuild and get the rookie going and help the rookie out.
And he's going to make so much money off of it. Like, props to that guy. It's great. He's living a great life.
Yeah. You don't have to be a Super Bowl winner to make all the money. So, I mean, they've got a good running back in Stevenson. They've got the ability to grind it out, keep it close. So I think Cincinnati wins this game, but 8.5 is a lot. You may have pushed me over the edge to New England. I haven't put my money on it yet, but I'm leaning that way.
This is at least, and Jake, if you have any reactions, of course, chime in, but at least when I look at the positional breakdowns, the run pass breakdowns that the model has, this is where the model's saying this might be a closer game closer than the experts think, to quote Lee Corso here, is New England running back core number 13, reasonable. Run blocking number 5. Defensive efficiency run for the Bengals number 30. That says the Patriots should be able to run the ball. They run the ball. They control the clock. That's going to make it harder to win by essentially what you need, double digits here. On top of that, New England weaker against the pass. So hold on to that thought, because that's going to be where this game's won and lost, I think. Number 1 against the run. And as you mentioned with the running backs for the Bengals, number 30, number 20 in run blocking as well. The Bengals are going to become one-dimensional. They aren't going to be able to run the ball against the Patriots. They're going to have to throw the ball, and that's where the Patriots, they can be a little bit more vulnerable. And obviously, you have Joe Burrow, who's a fantastic quarterback. If Jamar Chase doesn't play, it's T. Higgins and like a bunch of dudes off the street, more or less, or a bunch of random rookies that you're like, I don't know if you're going to turn any good or not. This game is real trappy for Cincinnati. This game becomes, and I don't know if it'll be this one or not, folks. Every week in the NFL, when you think about your survivor pools, every week but like 3, there's one or more random big upset that knocks out more than half of your survivor pool. And then there's like these random weeks where it doesn't, like all the big ones kind of win, and it's kind of chill and everyone just exhales. But like, viewer, that's not most weeks. Most weeks, there's one where it just crushes more than half your pool. Like, this game has that chance to be that without Jamar Chase. Even if it does, one of the things the model looks at is it's really a lot easier to be successful in the passing game if you have that third weapon. And the model's looking at the Bengals being like, they don't have that third weapon. And that becomes a thing that really matters. We saw it with the Texans last year. When they were getting that third guy going, that really elevated their offense when they, had all those different weapons. That's just one example. And so even if he plays, I think, it's not necessarily the most ideal situation, because Cincinnati's going to be forced to pass. The Pats know that. I don't know, again, how good of a head coach, Mayo will end up being. But can he defend against that? If without Jamar Chase, that becomes a whole lot easier now to really just say, we just got to shut Higgins down and they're not going to go anywhere. And this game is going to get ugly. Like I said, I think the Patriots can run the ball a little bit. I'm not saying they're going to put up 25 points, but if they run the ball, control the clock, make it an ugly game, it seems like this has the makings for a tighter game. And like I said, if there's no Chase, maybe even an upset here. But if nothing else, we don't have to care about that. 8.5 points is a lot. And so we're going to grab all of the points there. Tennessee and Chicago, we do also take totals. Probably not as many, but we do have some totals. A grade under 45, and this one the model is projecting 40 points. Again, pace slower for both these teams. I wouldn't read too much into that. Again, you're talking 1 or 2%. It doesn't actually affect the totals, quite like it doesn't in college football. What's going to affect this total is we don't think anything of Tennessee. Don't think they're going to be good at all. Don't think the Bears are going to be that good, except for the fact that they're going to have a decent defense. And so when you have bad football but one good defense, how are you going to get to 45 points is the question. We're thinking more like 40. Key number here in the NFL, 44 is actually more key than 45, but it's not bad to have 45 on your side as well. 41, obviously the key number in the low 40s. A lot of ways this goes under, Jake. Tell us why you like this under.
I don't have a ton of faith in Williams in his first real game going out there against the real defense. I think he will be very good. Even if he's not, he's got the weapons that'll make him go from average to good. But I think Tennessee is just low on offense. I mean, Tony Pollard couldn't get going behind the Dallas line at all last year. He goes a big downgrade in offensive lines, so that doesn't give me any faith in him. Will Levis, I've been down on him since we were trashing him in Kentucky. He kind of proved us a little bit wrong last year.
It was like 4 passes in one game.
Yeah.
Like other than that, he wasn't very good.
Yeah, and Ridley hasn't been the same since his gambling suspension. Hopkins is getting old. I mean, they lost Jonnu Smith too. I don't know where the offense in Tennessee is coming from, and I think Chicago is going to not be as explosive of an offense as what we're thinking. I think they're going to be a little more conservative and stuff and make sure Williams feels good and gets going. Plus, when you got a guy like Simmons on the defensive line for Tennessee, that's scary to have your new franchise quarterback who's going to be seeing that guy a lot, it seems like, because Chicago's line's not the greatest, and he's probably one of the better defensive tackles ends out there. So I think this game is going to be relatively boring, and the only exciting part is going to be a few highlights that Williams makes.
Yeah, and the Bears, according to the model, good line run blocking, top 15, bad pass blocking, number 25. So it does not think that they're going to have a lot of protection for him. A couple other things to add here. You mentioned Pollard. I think with the model, and as I mentioned Pollard, the model's still high on him. I think why? Let me, give me a chance to defend the model here. I think when you watch what he did with the Cowboys, and I do have a Cowboys shirt. I'm not really a Cowboys fan. My wife is. This is Professor, and my dad is. So I guess I am by proxy. I'm a fan of whoever we've got money on. But when you saw what they did last year versus years before, they really seemingly didn't know how to use him without Zeke. With Zeke, it became like we knew kind of what plays were calling for each guy, and Pollard was able to thrive. And then last year, that kind of went out the window. That's obviously a question of what will happen with Tennessee. Running back wise, will they figure out how to use him appropriately? But I think to your point, that's the other concern. And this is why people ask me all the time, they're like, can we use your stuff for fantasy football? And I'm like, you can, but it's like a little bit more nuanced than you think, because mine isolates every player and doesn't look at the other things. So you talk about the Tennessee line not being very good, number 30 pass blocking, number 22 run blocking. He's not going to get a lot of help there with a great offensive line. With Levis not being a very good quarterback, you can kind of gear up for the run, right? Like it's just kind of a bad recipe for it. So it's one of those things where it's like, I think as an individual running back, I think Pollard's pretty good, but how he's being used with that line, with that quarterback, like it's not a situation for him to succeed. So I both think he's a good running back still. And I also would not be drafting him in fantasy is what I'm saying with this. And so I think you're right. I think it's one of those things where Tennessee, like, I just don't know how to get going offensively other than that one game where Levis had those like 4 incredible passes and half of that was offensive PI and luck, right? He's looked like we thought, which in college, we were all, you, me and Cousin Jared were all like, this guy's overrated. He's not that good. Maybe he'll figure it out. It wouldn't be the first time that's happened, but we're all very skeptical of him. And so it's like, yeah, how is this Tennessee offense gonna really get going? Model's not overly high on Caleb Williams yet. Has a lot of growth that, but he might turn into a really good quarterback. We've talked about him before, and I do really think he's, got the possibility of becoming. I see a lot of Patrick Mahomes in him, and I'm not saying he's ever going to be that, but that same sort of like reckless, runs around, makes plays, and all of a sudden it turns no, yes, right? And Mahomes has gotten so good at it that like he starts running around and you're like, oh, here probably comes like a 50-yard play, and Caleb Williams wants to do that. I'm not sure at USC last year I saw him do that as successfully as I would have hoped. And I think that's the thing, is that Mahomes wasn't Mahomes in year one, right? Because it kind of takes you a little bit to kind of figure out, I guess, how to do this in the NFL, right? And I didn't see enough of this success from Williams. I saw him do it a few times with success at USC. But then I also saw a lot of situations where he tried that and college defenses were on him and it didn't work. And so I'm like, year one, I'm skeptical that that's going to translate right off the bat here. Like in a few years is when I'm thinking he might become something special. He might not, but we don't have to care about that right now. We have to care about how is he going to do in this situation. And it's not that I love the Tennessee defense, but I'm like, I just don't see either offense getting going.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a very boring game. The only reason to tune in is if you're a Bears fan or a Caleb Williams fan and you just want to see. I mean, the pieces are there for Chicago to have a good offense in the next couple of years with, DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, and then Rome Odunze, DeAndre Swift. They've got talent everywhere. The line is so important, and pass blocking is not very good. So if we know that, they know that.
Yeah.
So they're going to be handing the ball off a lot more than what people are expecting, I believe, and it's going to slow that game way down.
Yeah, number 6 rated receiver tight end core, according to Sideline. Like you said, they got a lot of talent on the outside. It's just, is it all going to come together? Is it all going to come together right now? I don't think the Bears will necessarily be terrible. This might be a terrible game. Also of note, 10-mile-an-hour crosswinds. Crosswinds matter in football more than end zone to end zone, unless it gets to like 25, 30 miles an hour. End zone to end zone wins don't typically matter. It's easier to adjust as a quarterback to put a little bit more on it, take a little bit off of it. Crosswinds are tough because depending on the depth of it, you don't know exactly how far to lead them, and that's what really throws off passers. 10-mile-an-hour winds are kind of at the cusp of where it starts to matter. Here's the thing, being in Chicago right off the lake, you might see some gusts that are 15, 20 miles an hour. So depending on exactly what the weather does, and that's when obviously we'll know more as the time gets closer, but just something to keep an eye on, that could also throw things off in the passing game, especially if there's some of those gusts off the lake. Might not be. It might be just a beautiful day, calm winds. And if that's the case, I still think it'll be a boring game. But if we get wind, oh boy, this game might end up being even much lower scoring than 40. So we're going to go under 45. Key number 44, kind of key number 45. So we're on the right spot there. Las Vegas and Los Angeles moving to the 3 or the 4 p.m. Eastern time slot here. New coach for, I guess, both of these teams. Have we ever heard of the guy that's coaching the Chargers? Is that someone we know? New guy?
Yeah, gotta be brand new.
Obviously, we're all interested to see, how that goes. Anytime you have a premier, head coach in one situation, make a transition, make a jump like that, you always kind of tune in and see what happens. And of course, all the Harbaughs now seemingly no strangers to any of the NFLs or colleges or back and forth and whatever. So it'll be interesting to see, now as he's returning here to the NFL, how this goes and to see if he can emulate now his brother's success, from Baltimore, with a Chargers team that I think a lot of people really think has underperformed the last several years. They've got a quarterback in Justin Herbert who's really good. And I think a lot of people were questioning why this team couldn't be more successful. And that's, why they decided to make a coaching change. And now we'll see if Harbaugh can come in and, get them where, they should be. So that's obviously something we're all keeping an eye on. Bottom line to me on this one is that they're just a much better team. Now, the model does not give really any home field advantage to a Los Angeles team because they typically don't have any extra fans there. The way it goes, you end up with a lot of out-of-town fans. It gives them just the travel advantage is all that it gives them. But it does not give them any extra advantage of that. It's a mere fraction of what home field advantage is for a Seattle, for a New Orleans, for almost like half the teams up in the Northeast who have some really strong home field advantages. So this isn't about the home field as much as it is you can just see that on the screen that the model thinks that Las Vegas is not very good and that the Chargers are at least decent. We were fairly high on Las Vegas last year. They covered in a lot of situations for us. Their defense was pretty strong. The model still says their defense will be okay. But look at that offense, and it's really starts at the top with Gardner Minshew, who's like probably the number one quarterback that I don't understand how he's starting. There are quarterbacks I think that are worse than him. I think Levis and Caleb Williams, both the quarterbacks in the last game we covered, I think will be worse than Minshew. But I get why they're playing. They have upside. Like, I don't see it with Gardner Minshew. He's the one quarterback that I'm like, I don't understand what's happening here. And then it just kind of trickles down from there. You mentioned that they lost Jacobs, who wasn't really impactful for them last year, but is, again, a piece who might be able to be successful. The best thing they have going for them is they might have a little bit of strength pass blocking and pass catching, but then you've got Gardner Minshew involved. So it's not like it's going to all come together. They don't really have anything at running back. They can stop the run, but that's really all they've got going. You kind of trust Harbaugh to have a good enough game plan, to figure out how to solve that. I don't know how Las Vegas hangs in here. We've got the Chargers by 5.5, so we're going to back them to win by 3.5. B grade pick, smaller edge, but even with the hook, we think it's worth laying it with the Chargers. Jake, tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, this is more a play against Vegas than it is for the Chargers because, I mean, the quarterback difference is massive with Herbert to Minshew.
Yeah.
Minshew is a very good backup everywhere, but him starting on a team shouldn't be happening, especially week one. Devontae Adams is there.
Yeah,
that's great. Love that. Don't know what to really make of Zamir White as a running back. He did well last year, but he also had Josh Jacobs back there for a bit, and I don't like how much were teams paying attention to him versus Zamir White, and then Brock Bowers. They had Michael Mayer too, which great tight end room between those two. I think it's going to be great, but they took Brock Bowers, smart move, great pick, but rookie tight ends struggle a bit because that blocking takes it out of them. They're just not ready because they're going against top tier guys, chipping them and all that. And it's a lot more responsibility than what they had in college. I don't know where this offense for Vegas gets going. The defense isn't good enough to cover them, even though Los Angeles really lost all their main weapons with Allen on the Bears now. I think Mike Williams on the Jets. Not really sure who Herbert's going to be throwing to, but it's definitely easier to go to quarterback to make bad receivers look good than the other way around.
And I think that's going to be the key there because the wide receiver tight end grouping for the Chargers, right, number 31 according to Sideline. So you're right, it is a bad group, relatively speaking, but he'll be able to be protected, decent pass blocking there, and again, a good quarterback who can make stuff happen. And we've seen all the time really good quarterbacks, like you said, make bad receivers look good, and that's what we're counting on. The Raiders, on the other hand, kind of have the similar problem, like we talked about with the Bengals. Jacoby Myers is decent enough as the number 2, but when it gets beyond that, they just don't have anybody to throw the ball to. And the model, is actually even higher on Alexander Madison than Zamir White. And so you've got a situation where the model is just looking at that saying like, yeah, you've got one really good wide receiver, another decent one, but no one to get him the ball. And that's going to cause problems because there's just not a lot else out there for them. And so I'm kind of with you. I don't really know what to expect of the Chargers again with the new coach that could go a lot of different directions, especially one like Harbaugh. And especially when you have a team that's got so many really good pieces and then so many holes as well. And so it's going to be an interesting mix to see how that all comes together. But, assuming he's a good coach here, and I feel like that's not the craziest stretch to say, with a good quarterback, you expect them to at least be respectable. And so can they make the playoffs? Don't know. But if they can be respectable, you think they should beat Las Vegas, who's just not a very good team at this point. And again, really to me, the quarterback situation, which has been the problem ever since they decided that, Carr wasn't good enough for them. It's just been kind of a question mark downhill really ever since. Really the 3.5 with the Chargers. That'll take us to Sunday night, where we've got the other Los Angeles team, the Rams, against the Lions. Silent is Detroit, number 3, I think rounding error from number 2, depending on exactly when I run the model. It's going to flip-flop those two. This Lions team was really good last year. Silenism is the number 1 rated offense. All those pieces, everything just clicked coming together for the Lions. Their defense, we talked about it all year last year, much improved, maybe not a top unit, but pretty good, relatively speaking. And that makes this Lions team a really good, a really good team. And we talked about it last year. At the beginning of the season, we weren't really high on the Lions. I think they did kind of start slow those first couple of games, but it wasn't very long before the model had the Lions as a top 5 team. Like I said, the model's not going to be right on everything, but it will adjust. It adjusted on them. It still thinks they're going to be really good. The Rams are an interesting case of pretty good offense, pretty good, a lot of good pieces like an offense, but that defense, oh boy, I'm not sure if the Lions are going to get stopped very much at all in this game. And that's why the model likes the Lions to win by almost double digits here. We're like 3.5 with an A-grade pick. I'm not sure why this line is so low. I know that the Lions are coming off of a storybook season, but it's not like they necessarily reached the goal by falling, just short of making the Super Bowl, of course. So I don't think there's going to be any hangover. I feel like there's a lot of motivation there to come back and be like, that was great, but we want to do more next year. So it's not like I don't think they just ate potato chips and got fat this offseason. I think they're still a really good team. I don't know why this is so low. I assume that place is going to be rocking. A lot of, fans there have been so passionate for so many years and hanging with such a bad team now that they're good. I'm just really surprised this line is 3.5. Jake, what's your take on it?
Yeah, this was the most confusing line of the week for me. I don't understand the 3.5. The defense of the Rams is just pitiful. In Detroit, I mean, if you watch the receiver documentary on Netflix, you figured out that St. Brown was hurt for most of the year and still put up the kind of year
it was still really good.
Yeah, and Laporta came on halfway through, it feels like, and was just a stud. I mean, they've got 2 great running backs. Gibbs was slow coming out. I think he was hurt for a minute and then was just slow getting out. But had the combo of him and David Montgomery is unfair.
It's a pretty good combo.
If there is a such thing as a boost for just loving your coach, it feels like Dan Campbell gets that boost for his team. It seems like every one of his guys runs through a wall for him.
I was just going to say, if I was going to run through a wall for any coach in any sport, he's one of the ones that comes to my mind first. He seems like that kind of guy where it's whatever his pep talk would be, and I'm just like, let's go. He just seems like that kind of guy. And the players all seem to think that.
Yeah, it's incredible the impact he has had. That was an incredible hire. They gave that playoff game away. Oh man, that felt like I had being here in Indianapolis. A lot of Detroit fans around. Heart was breaking for a couple of my friends because they'd been waiting for so long. Had the team, had the game won, and just handed it away. So there's not going to be a hangover from last year. We failed. We had it and we failed, so they're going to be motivated, and I think they're going to really come out blazing here.
Yeah, 2 very solid quarterbacks, but I feel like that's about where the similarities end on this because these teams are just made up, so differently. I think running back. I think the Rams with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, I think are going to have a little bit of an advantage. That's going to be a really good running back combination, but it's not to say that Montgomery and Jimmy Gibbs is not a good combo. It's actually a pretty strong one because not many teams have 2 pieces that are, above average like that. And so you've got a good little 1-2 duo there. And the Lions really don't have that third receiver, I would say, which would normally be a problem, except for the fact that Laporta is a guy who steps in there and kind of becomes that third option. So when you talk about you've got a third guy that you can trust to throw to, and then 2 running backs that you can swap out, it's given Jared Goff all the weapons in the world. And of course, this is a fun game simply because of the quarterback swap nature of these 2 teams. So anytime these 2 teams can get together, it's fun, just like, we did last year in the playoffs. But they've just got so much on offense there. And like you said, the defense is just the huge difference here. The Detroit defense has become, respectable, and the Rams defense is just a question mark really across the board. You can run all day over that run defense according to Sideline, and you should have some success passing, but you should be able to run a lot. Whereas the Rams might have a little bit of a harder time running against the Lions. And so I think the run game might be the big difference in this one. Yeah, like you said, if there's any boost for a coach, if there's any boost for fans, if there's any boost, any of this stuff, I mean, it feels like a game that the Lions should run away from and be an early Sunday night for us all, hopefully we'll be again, as we are laying 3.5 A grade. And we've got the Monday night game as well. The Jets and the 49ers, Aaron Rodgers being back is, to me, the biggest story of this game, in that I have no idea what to expect from him, because quarterbacks of his age tend to fall off at whatever random year, and you never really know it, and it can come fast. Is that now for him? Is he still going to be 100%? Is he going to, of his old self? Is he going to be 80% of his old self? Exactly where is he on this? And that's the question, because Aaron Rodgers could have an MVP type season, and he would not be the first quarterback of this age to do that. We just saw it a few years ago with Tom Brady, but then the next year we saw what happened with Tom Brady. Now, Brady was a little bit older, but I think that guy's a machine. The way he keeps his body in shape, that's a whole different. He's not part of the normal aging curve, right? But we see that sometimes you just don't know. Like, you could tell me that Rodgers is going to be just decent, and with this Jets team, they'll be decent if he's decent. But if he's really good, this Jets team has a chance to compete in the AFC. And so, he's going to be the big difference maker. The model is in love with the Jets defense. It was in love with them last year, number one, according to Sideline. So really just the big question is, can they hold up on offense to give that defense the help that they could not get last year? They were so one-dimensional last year that even with an incredible running back who tended to make one or two big plays a game, couldn't do anything else because they were just constantly stacking the box. Is Rodgers going to be good enough to really, open things up and make this offense dynamic? And the answer is absolutely possible. We don't really know exactly how good, and that's, and yes, we don't know how exactly good anybody's going to be, but he's, to me, the biggest question mark. And so that obviously has a little bit of impact on this. Aside from that, though, this Niners team is really good at home. I don't know why we're only laying 3.5. Sideline says 6. I would have thought this would have been 4.5 to 5.5, which is about where the model has it, in that kind of no man's land between 4 and 6. That's what I would have thought it would have been. And I would have just at that point been like, that's about where it should be. Like, the Niners might win by a field goal, the Jets might win, or the Niners might win by 6, 7, 10. Like, any of those are all kind of reasonably likely around that. But the fact that we get the win on 4 is really surprising. People focus a lot on 3. We're laying 3.5 in 3 games. I think we're laying 3 with the Chargers. The other 3 were 3.5. Obviously 3 is the key number. Absolutely. I don't want to minimize that. But it's not the only key number around there. 4's got a possibility as well. So the 1 on 4 is worth a lot. Also, if Rodgers is any bit slow, not the right timing with these receivers, anything like that, and this Jets team becomes a little bit one-dimensional, the Niners at home can be really nasty. The Niners at home can be really nasty against a good team and win by 7 or more. So I'm just surprised this line's a little bit low. Jake, what's your take on it?
Yeah, now that everybody on San Francisco is paid, Williams, Ayuk, Debo, Purdy, everybody's paid. I think they are just going to be a machine like they have been the last few years. The defense probably took a step back with Armstead leaving, but they've seemed to be able to plug in place, especially on defense. They are just very good. They don't make a lot of mistakes. The Jets are a question mark. You do have an incredible defense, an incredible running back. You don't know about Aaron Rodgers. Garrett Wilson's great, but who's 2, who's 3? Are we looking at Mike Williams, who could never get it done, couldn't stay healthy, couldn't be good out there in LA? Alan Lazard played well with Rodgers before in Greenwood Bay, but who knows what happens now? They've got some other weapons and stuff. The pieces are there. I just don't know if they all fit together right away, especially with as little as Rodgers played last year and in the preseason. I don't think going to San Francisco is the best place to start backing them. Maybe week 2 we can get turned around on them, because that defense will keep them in most games. If this got to 4.5, anything like that, I'd be staying away. But at 3.5 with a win on 4, I think this game ends between 4 and 7, and I'll take the lay of the 3.5 all day with San Francisco at home.
Yeah, I was going to say on average maybe between 3 and 7, and of your outcomes there, you got a win on 4, win on 6, win on 7. lose on 3. It's worth the odds. It's worth the chance, right? And I think, I kind of want to bring home everything you just said there by talking about the wide receivers, and we talked about Roger. I want to bring it all together. It's one of those things when I look at the ratings of what Sideline has, and we know the injury, we know the upside potential and the downside potential of those. We've already talked about it ad nauseum here. I think my kind of like final take on it would be, if the receiving core is only mediocre, which is very possible, we need Rodgers. If you're a Jets fan, you need Rodgers to be great, to do like we talked about earlier, because a great quarterback can make mediocre receivers look better. And so if Rodgers is old, great Rodgers, the receivers, not a concern. If Rodgers is a little bit, not quite as good, I'm not saying I don't think the Achilles injury will necessarily affect him this year as much as it is just a age. Every age is undefeated, right? Father time undefeated. If he's mediocre, we need, if you're a Jets fan, the receivers to be top notch in order to match that. And then it can, because really good receivers, it's kind of like what Brock Purdy had. Purdy's a solid quarterback, a very solid starting quarterback. He's not the best quarterback in the game, but my goodness, those weapons he has. He looks fantastic, right? And so if their receivers do what they can do, and or you get to like the chemistry with Lazard and Rodgers, whatever, then they'll be okay. The thing is that if both of those are mediocre, that's where they start becoming that same one-dimensional offense. And that's where they'll be good, not great. That's where they will, if they win the games they should, they'll make the playoffs, but they won't be able to hang in at San Francisco. They won't be able to hang in at Kansas City. They won't be able to hang in, with Detroit, those sort of things. But they'll still be much better for sure. That's to get them to that top tier level. And that's not to say, because you all want to make sure you hear this if you're still with us at the 56-minute mark, right? These top teams like the Niners, or like the Lions we talk about on Sunday Night Football, it's not to say they're going to play 17 A games. It's to say we think they're probably going to play 12 of them, 12 A games, and the other 5 are going to be, or the other 4 are going to be B games, and one's going to be just a C game. And so we don't know if they're going to play an A game, but you kind of have to just assume they are because they're those top teams. And so if we assume we get the A game from San Francisco, that's going to be where it's tough, and the Jets need these things to kind of hold together. And that's where it's we don't know. There's a lot of question marks, but yeah, 3.5 is like, it's definitely worth it knowing this Niners team is still really good at home. And like you said, can easily win by 7, and that would not surprise anybody. That's our show. Here, again, all the specials on Dub Club. Take advantage of that link in the show description. Check out the free trials. Check out the packages that drop your average price. If the monthly price is a little bit too high for you, football-only package. Again, $99.99 here for your first year. Jake, parting words before we sign off.
Yeah, be sure to follow us on all the social media. There's tons of updates we give out, especially sometimes there's giveaways, all sorts of things out there. You gotta be following us to catch them all and get yourself entered in the giveaways or any of the updates we make for different plays, especially with college football. Like we got 3 sports going right now: baseball, college football, and NFL, and like basketball's coming soon. So it's a ton of information coming at you. Just be with us everywhere. If you're not in the Discord chat or that's not your thing, social media is the best way to get a hold of us.
Yeah, you don't have to remind me we have 3 sports going at the same time. My body is very aware of it. And I need to do another giveaway. We kind of I wasn't able to do them because, the last few weeks, folks, have been just like nonstop football prep. Whatever didn't get done before, wrapping up everything, making sure everybody's on the right team, getting all the models in line, making sure there's no errors in the code, making sure that all the spreadsheets, once I run the code in R, get it to a place that I can kind of visualize it and then get it, have, lines of code in there in order to get it displayed. And there's just so many moving pieces there. And the last few weeks have just been nothing but. Now that we're in the season, though, we should be, hitting autopilot here pretty soon. And so we'll get back to doing a couple of those giveaways that we were doing on the social medias here at some point in the future here now that hopefully we can kind of settle in. But 3 sports at one time, there's a lot happening for sure. And then we get a little reprieve with playoff baseball. And like you said, then it's college basketball. So again, a lot of reasons to check out Dub Club if you're looking for all the sports. Again, if you just want football, check out the football-only package. It'll be worth your time and investment to get all this information, easily digestible, extra picks that we do, not on the show. A lot of reasons to join Dub Club. Check that out. Otherwise, though, thank you for watching. As always, we wish you the best of luck and remind you that you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.